Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jen. I'm the host of Blockchain Banter and Bancor contributor, and I'm here with Glenn, another one of the Bancor contributors. Glenn, thanks for joining me again and doing this part two with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great. So yesterday we actually went over, I think we were trying to make that short, but I guess it took us like an hour to explain a lot of different features of Carbon. So today, hopefully we can, finish off the rest of the things that we didn't manage to cover. So I think
we got a lot covered. We did. We got a lot covered. And hopefully, what was really great about yesterday was I was watching as everyone was joining and they were staying, which is always nice to see, like it was actually what I've gotten as feedback. And what I had seen was hopefully helpful to everyone, to those that had actually reached out in my DMs. Thank you for sticking around and actually really getting to know the product. There is a lot that you can benefit from, and it's nice to be able to kind of do this sort of format and really walk through it. But yeah, like you said, it took us a little bit longer to do it than we had anticipated. We weren't thinking of doing a part two, but here we are. So
for sure. Yeah, I feel like we when we first launched Carbon, it was pretty bare bones, so we didn't have as many of the features like we do now. So it does take longer as there are more things that are constantly been added to the actual DApp here. And obviously, we're always trying to improve the product, right? So if you guys do have any like feedback for us, or just thoughts, opinions, if you're using Carbon DeFi already, how we can improve this product, please let us know. That's something that we take very seriously, and we do want to make sure that we are actually creating products that you want to use.
Right. And that you understand too.
For sure.
Like when Carbon DeFi was first launched, like you said, it was bare bones, but it's also all new, right? It's this kind of paradigm shift from liquidity provider to trader and liquidity provider with, minimal control of what your funds are doing or how you're able to manage your funds, I guess, to having all of these tools. So there's a little bit of that education that kind of comes into it. And I think that this is kind of where we took a little bit more time, but I mean, it is beneficial to the users to understand how they can really take advantage of such a product,
Yeah. And you mentioned there's something key, that education aspect. And it's also why we have what you're looking at here, which is essentially the simulator, right? So
yeah, let me bring it up. Hold on.
Sure.
I'm going to bring it up. And then for everybody who is on here, whether it's live or tuning in later, I'm also going to share a tweet that Bancor had put out a little bit about the simulator with a link to it. So I'll share that now in the comments. Okay, perfect. Glenn, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you, is my screen visible?
Yeah, we can see it.
Cool.
What I want to do you mind? We'll kind of just explain what the simulator is and then the different strategy types for anybody who wasn't here for part one, who, we don't need to go in as much depth as we did yesterday, but maybe we could just briefly kind of do a summary of what the two different strategy types are that you're able to simulate using this tool.
Yeah, that sounds good. So so this simulator wasn't there on day one when we first released the product, but it's something that we released later. And it was something that essentially it's quite useful for Carbon, because a lot of the times you end up finding that people are creating trading strategies with tokens that might not necessarily have a direct trading pair on chain, which means that it's kind of difficult to get a chart for it, right? So for example, right now, this is the ETH/USDC chart, right? This is something that anyone can get from most trading charting sites, right? But let's say if you want to create a trading strategy of something like the cow token from CowSwap against maybe like the 1-inch token, right? This is a pair that normally people don't trade directly, right? But you might be interested in trading these two tokens for whatever reason, right? And this is just one example. People tend to trade a lot of these like esoteric tokens against each other. I see them all the time on Ethereum, on Phantom, on Base, on Mantle, where we have Carbon live at the moment. And essentially, this is quite useful because all of a sudden you can actually see a price chart. And this price chart helps you select the buy and sell ranges or buy and sell limit orders, right? So what we can do here is essentially we are creating like a virtual chart by stitching these two tokens together, right? So they both tend to have like a common either trading pair on chain that might be like 1-inch ETH or 1-inch USDC or cow swap ETH, cow swap USDC, and then we can create this like virtual chart here that you're looking at. So this is why the simulator is a useful tool, because all of a sudden now you have this capability that you didn't have before. So let me give you an example. So popular trading pair in Carbon tends to be ETH BTC. Let's look at ETH WBTC. Cool. So this is like a popular trading pair on Carbon. Obviously, a lot of people tend to have either one or both of these tokens in their portfolio, right? This is the number one and the number two cryptocurrencies by market cap. So what we can do here is you can visualize the chart, and you can essentially say here, I am willing to buy down here, right? So we can sort of shift this around a little bit and sell up here, right? And we can shift this around as well. And as we're shifting this around, you can see that the price on the range here is getting updated in real time, right? So this is like the cool thing. As you're moving this around, it updates the price, and vice versa. If you update the price here, it will update the widget here on the chart.
So Glenn, really quickly, this is the recurring orders that we're looking at, right? So for anybody who missed it yesterday, the recurring strategy or recurring orders, this is where you have a buy order, you have a separate sell order. A separate sell order. And once one of those orders fills, even partially fills, the tokens that you acquire automatically rotate to fill the opposite order. So when you see this going into the sell range, down into the buy, back up into the sell, this is an automated cycle of like just buy low, sell high, repeat. There's no more actions that need to actually be taken here other than what Glenn is showing you, where you're creating this strategy that you want to implement.
Yeah, this is, it gives you a great visual of the recurring strategy, right? Because now you can see that you have the buy order down here, you have the sell order up here. There is this gap between them. This is essentially the spread that you're capturing as
that's your profit. That's your profit.
The spread, the profit, as the price of these the token is moving, of this trading.
I lost you for a second, Glenn. Are you there still? I'm not sure if anybody else can hear him.
You make your gains on Carbon as a liquidity provider or a trader or a market maker, whatever you want to call yourself.
Wait,
right?
Glenn, you cut out for a second. Back up to what you were just saying. Can you just repeat that last 2 minutes or minute of what it was you were just saying?
Sure. I was saying as the price goes within your range, you can see here that up here we're selling, down here we're buying, right? So it does this, multiple times on this chart over this time period, right? And this is essentially how you make your money, right? As a trader, as a liquidity provider, or a market maker, right? You're capturing that spread that exists between these two orders, and the more they get filled, the better it is for you, right? This is how your gains are made on here. So we're gonna simulate. I'm just gonna leave these ranges as is. I'm gonna simulate strategy with 1 BTC. I don't have to put any ETH here, right? But I can certainly do so. It's the same as when you're creating the strategy in the strategy creation. You can fund one order, you can fund the other order, or you can fund both of them, right? You have flexibility here as to which order you're funding. Just keep in mind that if one order gets filled or partially filled, right, that liquidity automatically rotates at that point in time to the other order to be made available for buying or selling at the other price point.
It's such a great thing to be able to have that option too, you know, without having to sell half of what you have in order to fund that opposite order. It's like I'm only going to buy if I can buy at this range, right? And I'm only going to sell if I can buy here. Like it's just a nice option for users to have. I don't think like these recurring orders, this is a result of that new technology that kind of that powers Carbon DeFi. So this isn't something that you'll just find on an AMM or your average DEX.
Right. No, it's not something that most AMMs let you do, right? Typically, they're quite prescriptive. If it's like a constant product, AMM, you're buying between 0 and infinity across the entire price spectrum, right? Concentrated liquidity AMMs, they do give you some more flexibility as to where that liquidity it's being contributed to. But even then, you don't have the flexibility like you do on Carbon, where you can say, I actually only want to buy at this price points or price point and sell at this price point or price points, right? That's not something that you get typically on concentrated liquidity AMMs. If you buy or if you sell something at like $1, you have to be willing back to buy it at $1, right?
Right.
On Carbon, you can say, no, I'm going to be selling something at $1 and I'm only going to buy it back at 90 cents, right? You have that that buy low, sell high behavior.
Yep.
So we can run this simulation here.
Now, you can choose the dates that you want to run the simulation for. It goes back up to a year. So just for anybody who is watching this and okay, so Glenn is showing you now where you can go and you can choose your dates. You can customize that up to 365 days back. And it does pull all of that real historic data in order to give you the results for this strategy.
Correct. You can always modify the date here. We do have some preset options that you can select. And obviously that will filter the simulation for that time period, right?
Right.
When you start the simulation, it will use the time period that you selected. So ETH WBTC, this is what we're simulating right now. Essentially, you can see that as this is going in this time period, right here, we're starting to buy ETH. As we bought some ETH down here, it looks like some of it was made available for selling up there, right?
So this is nice because this isn't necessarily something that everyone is going to be able to understand, right? Like what this is actually showing you. But I think something that the simulator really does a nice job at doing is for those who want to see what is actually happening with my liquidity, what's happening with my funds, where are my tokens rotating, you know, when is this actually executing? You can go to that activity tracker now, of course. But this is for really becoming a better trader, kind of learning about what is happening within your strategy, and then being able to kind of, I don't want to say perfect it, but improve it, right? You can improve your strategy. You can continue to back test them, see what the results of them would be when you kind of mess with the ranges just a little bit and recognize patterns.
Yeah, that's correct. Like this is a very good visual. Like we started with one WBTC. As the market, the price sort of went into our buy range here. We used some of that WBTC. We acquired some ETH, so that got filled up here. It went further into our buy range. We acquired more ETH, and that ETH now went up here, right? It's made available for sale back for WBTC, and you can see the balances here, right? So we started with one WBTC. We're down to 0.17 at this point in time. We have 17 ETH that we have acquired with WBTC, and now this 17 ETH is available in this order up here to essentially be sold off for WBTC again, right? And if we continue this animation, like you can just see what's happening here. Now we have consumed all of the WBTC because it has gone way past our buy range, right? And up here we have 100% ETH now, right? So 20.80 ETH, and that is made available for buying WBTC. And you can see this as the price now goes up through our buy range, right? Nothing is happening because there's no tokens here. And then obviously once we get up here, we had ETH, right? That ETH now was converted to some WBTC. And you can see that we have 0.55. We continue this thing towards the end. We end up with 10.21 and 0.55 WBTC, right? And it shows you the ROI, what that looks like. So this is like a 10.75% ROI in the quote token,
Glenn?
which is WBTC. Yeah.
Sorry, really fast. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
In the quote token, which is WBTC, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to just kind of backtrack a few minutes or a minute.
Sure.
When Glenn was showing, when you were showing us where the liquidity is, like you can say, okay, you're starting to buy a little bit of ETH here, you're buying a little bit more here, you're buying a little bit more here. For anybody who didn't catch the part one, or even if you did, I mean, it's worth mentioning all over again. Even though there are multiple transactions or multiple orders filling here, even within, you can see them in this image or in this visual, right? This animation. The maker of this strategy is not paying for these orders to be filled. So when you see, okay, some of this has been filled, a little bit more of my order has been filled, a little bit more of my order has been filled. Okay, now it's rotating up into my sell order. This is at no additional cost to the strategy maker. And it's all automated within Carbon DeFi. Like this is the mechanics of Carbon DeFi natively. So there's no third party risk. I want to mention that again. It's not any sort of keepers or hooks, nothing of that sort to introduce any sort of that third party risk. This is all native to the system and at no additional cost to the strategy maker.
Yeah, correct. That's a good point. There is no additional cost to you as these orders are being filled. And
Right.
also
And
the liquidity here rotates automatically. You don't have to do any clicking or, there's nothing on your side that you have to do in order for this liquidity to move to the next order and vice versa, right? This is all built into the protocol. It does this for you.
mhm. And then the ROI really quickly.
Mhm.
Some have asked me, and I think they probably have asked you too, how is the ROI calculated? It's calculated versus a hodl position when you at the time that you create your strategy. So this 10.75% is versus where it was at the time, that you were, previously creating the strategy. How long ago what did you set the time on this for, the dates?
It was looks like February 27th of this year.
So a month, 3 weeks?
No, February, that would have been like 3 months.
Oh, we're in May.
Yeah.
Are we in May? Yeah, we're not in March. Okay, so 3 months.
So this is 3 months, right? And you can have there's a summary here that shows you everything that happened, right? As the in that time period, right? And you can see here essentially the portfolio value versus the huddle value. So the huddle value is roughly 1, which is what we started with 1 WBTC. And we ended up with roughly 1.10 WBTC, right? So this is a 10.75% ROI. So the ROI is always against huddle, right? Had you huddled that 1 BTC, you would have ended up with 1 BTC, obviously, because you didn't do anything. But if you created this strategy and then it traded a few times, like it did here, right, you would have had roughly 1.10 WBTC at the end, and your ROI would have been 10.75%.
That's awesome in 3 months. I want to point out a couple of things really quickly. One is the strategy I personally really enjoy because ETH and WBTC are just both super strong, right? Like you're selling. Now, granted, you would have had 1 WBTC or the equivalent value of 1.1. You have half in ETH more or less and half in WBTC. But a lot of those that are looking to acquire, accumulate their WBTC are also looking to accumulate ETH. Like this is a good one because you are, if the strategy goes outside of your range, you're not necessarily angry at the fact that you were left in all WBTC or right now you're holding all ETH, right? I think this is why this is a very popular strategy. I
Yes.
also want to point out, I think we've become accustomed to trading against ETH, against WBTC, against our stable of choice. Now you actually have, and I know you had mentioned this, but the ability to create a strategy using any two standard ERC20 tokens. So if this does go outside of your range, it's like, you know what? I'm good hodling this one. I'm good hodling this one. If I trade them against each other and there is this volatility profile that I can, potentially capitalize on, right? Or gain something from in trading this back and forth, and end up with one of these tokens. Okay, like this one, this is such a good one. The other one was the meme strategy that we had given as an example. But right now, Aave and Comp, two really strong blue chips, right?
These are, like you said, it's important, right? Because what you're selecting, the trading pair, right? Sometimes you might end up 100% in one token or the other, right? And, if you pick a trading pair where you're sort of bullish, I guess, on both tokens, you don't really care which ones you have more or less of towards the end, right? That is like a good trading pair to trade, right? But obviously, like stuff that is going sideways is always good because that means that you can keep doing this like buy low, sell high over long periods of time, right? You mentioned like the meme tokens. I think that would have been Pepe and SHIB is what we've seen.
Or Pepe and Floki, I think was a really good one too. Like surprisingly good. Maybe it was Pepe. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those. I'll actually look for it and I'll share it here so that everybody can kind of take a look. I was so surprised at what the actual strategy was. I think it was over like the last year or something like that, though. But yeah, I mean, the point
you can see here is like as this is going up, right? You're selling this for one token. You're buying, you're selling, you're buying, right? Selling a little bit, or no, not now you're 100%, right? And then this goes up, you sell again, you buy a little bit, you sell again. So like these charts where you're constantly doing this like buy and sell back and forth, these are like good tokens to trade against each other, right? And you don't have to limit yourself against ETH or WBTC. The beauty about Carbon is that as long as these tokens have liquidity on chain, then your order should get filled, right? So Pepe and Floki, there's probably not a direct trading pair on chain, right? But there's probably Pepe ETH or Pepe USDC and Floki ETH or Floki USDC, right? And as long as that liquidity exists on another DEX on chain, then when that order is quote unquote in the money, right, it will fill those orders.
Right.
So let's do overlapping now. We can, I guess, do ETH USDC for overlapping. Just to.
I'm going to, while you get that set up, I'm actually going to grab a blog that we had written about the automated recurring strategies, so that if anybody wants to kind of look into that a little bit further, then they have something to refer to.
Cool. So yeah, so the goal of the overlapping strategy is essentially what it's considered a liquidity, a concentrated liquidity position in other DEXs, right? Where the buy and the sell order, they overlap, right? So this is what I'm showing you right now. Carbon obviously has some flexibility in the sense that our spread or fee tier, there's no preset. There's some presets here, but you can set this to be whatever you want it to be, right? So we don't limit you as to the fee tier that you can set here. The other thing is, as this strategy is trading back and forth within this range, the fees or the spread that you're capturing, right, accumulates right back into that strategy. So it doesn't go in a separate location or a separate bucket that you then have to collect it from and then auto compound this back into your position. Now, this happens like automatically here, right? And then obviously the min and max price here, this can be whatever you want it to be. We don't have a restriction of a tick or tick boundaries or buckets, whatever you want to call them, right? Our limitation here is essentially the resolution of the blockchain itself, right? In terms of how much precision it supports, right? So keep this in mind for the overlapping strategies. And you can do a budget here. We're going to select ETH Let's see. Let's just do one. Start the simulation. So this one, you would have been better off holding essentially ETH in this case, right? So we are denominating this in USDC, right? Obviously, ETH right now, there is the ETF news, right? So price has shot up when it comes to the price of ETH, right? So for this trading pair, essentially you would have been better off just holding that ETH, right? But I'm showing you guys because
sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just showing you this example because this is literally what happens in other concentrated liquidity positions, AMMs, right? When you're out of range, you're 100% in that token, and a lot of the times the fees would not made up for being 100% that token, that loss that you've suffered, right? Essentially, you would have been better off just holding and not doing anything.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is like there's certain things that are being shown to users here, not just what's happening with your liquidity, but the result of this sort of strategy, that you don't see for a lot of AMMs. You're seeing how much of the fees you're earning without seeing the rest of this sort of information, right? So you can see how successful or unsuccessful this sort of strategy might be. Like LP strategy or concentrated liquidity position may or may not be, and then be able to go back and adjust your spread, right?
Correct.
Adjust your range, and then find how it actually can be. That's another one that I'm going to share actually is remember the one on base where they're like, with ROIs like this, I don't need DEX emissions, remember? I'm going to share that one for the viewers as well, because they had created an overlapping liquidity strategy that they were really happy about.
Yeah. So the thing about the simulator is like it will show you everything, negative ROIs, right? It will show you positive ROIs, right? You can always go back and adjust, right? We made this to be an educational tool that would help you use the protocol, right? And seeing how different spread that you're selecting, different fee tiers, I guess if you want to call them that, how that affects the profitability of your strategy, right? This was one of the reasons why we created this, right? Because people wanted to sort of understand Carbon. They wanted to backtest their trading strategies. And essentially, this is like a good, useful tool for that, right?
Right.
So yeah, so this covers essentially the simulator. Right now, the simulator is live on the Ethereum deployment of Carbon, but we also planned eventually on getting this live on the Say deployment of Carbon as well, right?
I was just going to say, because the simulator relies on, it actually uses that real historic data. Until there is enough of this data to kind of power the simulator, it's not going to be available right away on the Say V2 deployment, right? We need to get that sort of token trading history first in order to actually apply that to backtesting these strategies. But like Glenn said, from my understanding, don't quote me on it, but from my understanding, once that sort of information is available, then this will be made available to users on Say V2 also. And it'll be, I would assume it's going to be right there on the UI, available on desktop as well.
Yeah, we're once Say V2 goes live, I'm assuming there's going to be a bunch of tokens that are going to be launched on the new blockchain, right? Some are going to be migrated from other locations. They're going to have liquidity on chain, right? Some of these will start getting tracked via your typical tracking sites, things like CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, etc. Right? Once they have a price history, we can essentially start ingesting that price history, and then we'll have this capability that I'm showing you right now, but for Say, right? And those tokens that are essentially unique to Say V2, right? We just need
Right.
to have some of that price history once say V2 goes live, and then we'll be able to use the simulator there with the say V2 tokens.
Yep. Cool.
So
Thanks, Glenn.
yeah, this is the simulator. I encourage you to play around with that just to essentially get an idea about Carbon. It's free to use. You don't have to, create. You don't have to have a strategy created before you use it. No, you can just go ahead and use it. The other thing that we want to show you is the trade page. Let's go here.
So this is Glenn. Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
So when Glenn and I were saying that you created a range, right? And Carbon DeFi handles the rest. It breaks it down into all of these limit orders. And without getting super technical, right, it makes an order pretty much available at like all of these different price points. This is where you can see where those, like what those orders actually are. Anybody can go in and act as a taker. So maybe we should rewind, talk about the takers in the system, Glenn. Carbon DeFi is really designed to be a product for makers. As we were talking yesterday about how when you go in and you make a sort of trade, you have to worry about slippage and sandwich attacks and what you're actually going to receive, right? How much of this token am I going to get back? So going from a taker and making this sort of trade on an AMM into Carbon DeFi and acting as a maker and making this sort of strategy, making your liquidity available for others to take at a specific price point. This is where the protocol is like really, really strong. This is kind of the action that I at least would recommend that you take for Carbon, like within Carbon DeFi. But there are always two sides to a trade, right? I would encourage you to act on Carbon DeFi as a maker. This is kind of what it was created for. But you still need a taker. This is kind of where this comes in. Anybody can go into the app. You can go straight to the UI. You can go to the trade page that Glenn is showing and fill any of these orders or make a trade here. But it's not limited to this, right? Glenn, do you want to talk about the aggregators and the arbitrage lane also?
Yeah, I should mention here what Jen said, right? So all the orders on Carbon, at least here for the ETH-USDC trading pair, they're shown to you as if this was almost like that order book like interface that you're used to, right? So you see it, you're seeing the bids, the ask at the price points, right? The amounts, the totals, right? You have this depth chart here, right? And essentially this shows you all of the strategies for ETH-USDC, and we try to give you like this visualization, right? So you can get an idea of where things are, right? So
remember, Carbon is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So Carbon will post all orders on chain, right? So that anyone can take them, right? And we have aggregators as takers, right? On mainnet Ethereum, at least. It should be available via OpenOcean, Odos, 1inch, PairSwap soon, hopefully, right? We have a PR with them. And
there are a few others too. Those are the three like major that we know of, I think. But like I've seen other systems taking from Carbon DeFi liquidity as well.
Right. There's typically other wallets that have taken from Carbon, and this is because they tend to go through aggregators. So for example, we've seen stuff from like MetaMask, BitGet wallets, and some of these other wallets that have like a built-in swap functionality, because they typically use an aggregator for their swap functionality. And then obviously those aggregators know about the Carbon orders that are put on chain, and assuming Carbon gives a good price execution for that swap, a portion of that trade might get routed through Carbon orders.
Right. And this is something I always recommend too. Like, although you can go to this trade page and you can make a trade here, I always recommend going to an aggregator. They're going to search for the best sort of execution for you. You know, I don't know why anybody doesn't use aggregators, but I definitely recommend that you do. The other taker in the system is Bancor, another product of Bancor. And I had mentioned it, I think we mentioned it yesterday. It can be a standalone product. It also functions as a like built-in bot for Carbon DeFi, sort of a solver, if you will. It's aware of all of the sort of orders on Carbon DeFi, the strategies, and it's integrated across the entire chain, right? So it is searching the chain um, for through all of the liquidity, or at least 95% of the liquidity, right? To pull from them in order to fill these orders on Carbon DeFi. Glenn, you probably have a different way of explaining it. So if you kind of want to give it your go,
Right.
please do.
So yeah, we have the as Jen said, we do have something called the Bancor Arb Fastlane. And essentially, this is an open arbitrage framework that integrates on-chain liquidity sources. So it knows about UniV2 and its derivatives, UniV3 as well as its derivatives. It knows about solidly and solidly based forks, right? And then it knows about multi-asset pools, things like Balancer, right? And what it does is it looks for price discrepancies between these on-chain liquidity sources and carbon orders, right? So as soon as a carbon order is quote unquote like in the money, right, there might be a price discrepancy between that order and a liquidity source on chain. And what it will do is if there's a profitable arbitrage opportunity, it will go ahead and close that arbitrage opportunity, right? And in this case, the person that closes the arbitrage opportunity, they get 50% of the arbitrage profit for themselves. So to give you an idea.
Okay, so really fast before you go on and say, to give you an idea, this, what Glenn is talking about for anybody running the arbitrage, the arb fast lane, and what's called a caller, right? This is completely open source. It's permissionless. It's decentralized. And really what Bancor has done is kind of democratized arbitrage, if you will, across these different chains that it's been deployed on. So for Ethereum, for Base, for Phantom, for Mantle, for Linea, it's on Linea as well. And it will be on, say, V2. Anyone can go in and they fork the GitHub, right, Glenn?
Yeah. So yeah, to give you an idea, we've had on Ethereum, we have over 70 unique callers, right? In about a year or so, I think it has paid over 300K US dollars to these callers, right? The code for you to run this, it's just a Python base. It's a Python based bot, right? And you just need to provide it some tokens in the native gas token of that blockchain, right? In order for it to actually start finding these arbitrage opportunities and then be able to close them, right? So you can easily do that, right? It shouldn't be too hard to run that if you want to sort of participate on being, I guess, a fast lane runner, right? Or someone that runs the fast lane. And yeah, we're constantly improving the fast lane. We are integrating as many liquidity sources that exist on chain. All of the major, say, V2 DEXs that are going to be there, they're going to be integrated with the fast lane because obviously the more liquidity sources we have, the better it is for people utilizing Carbon. And what ends up happening in reality is that for popular trading pairs, they typically get taken by aggregators. So those orders get filled through aggregators. But when someone creates like an esoteric trading pair, things like a Pepe against Floki, no one really tends to be trading these directly, or it's rare that people trade these directly against each other. So you don't see people swapping Pepe against Floki via 1inch, for example. So what ends up happening there is the fast lane will see that, okay, this order, it's in the money now in the Pepe Floki trading pair. I can actually arbitrage this against some on-chain pools, right? And like I mentioned before, there might not exist a Pepe Floki pool directly on chain, but there's a Pepe ETH and a Floki ETH pool, and the fasting will just do triangular arbitrage at that point in time to get your orders.
Yeah, it's gotten very sophisticated. So a couple things really fast. It was created to have much less of a technical barrier than a lot of arbitrage bots. Like there's no cost to running it, right? Other than you funding the gas to actually have these trades performed. But it's not like Bancor is charging anybody to run it. It's actually the opposite. So Bancor has made this available, like I said, for anybody to run. Glenn was saying, 70 something, almost 80 different callers right now. And he had mentioned before 50% of the trade. So if you are a caller of the ARB fast lane, if your bot does win one of these trades, 50% of that trade goes back into the Bancor ecosystem 50% of that trade goes to you. So this is a way of arbitraging the chain, without all of that sort of technical knowledge that you might need otherwise. And you're, I mean, essentially winning 50% of whatever trades your bot closes.
Right.
A lot of people, some will take this and kind of build on top of it, but it looks to be, on Ethereum at least, you know, I wouldn't say it's even across all 70 something, right? Some will have advantages over others, but it's this framework that is made available and continuously being improved upon.
Correct. I mean,
So yeah, anyway, with the Say community, for all of you that are listening from the Say community specifically, or for anybody who is on any of those chains that I had just mentioned, this is something that Bancor invites you to participate in. It's just another one of the products that you're able to use and benefit from in a little bit of a different fashion, right?
yeah, there's a lot of advantages for having the fast lane on the chain, right? Essentially, it does maintain price parity across all of those trading venues, right? So this is
Right.
quite useful because you're not going to have like price discrepancies, right? And obviously, price parity, it's a good thing for chains, right? Chains tend to love having just people that are doing searchers, MEB, right? Whatever you want to call them, right? Making sure that price discrepancies are being closed properly, right? And you have price parity across different trading venues.
Yeah. Glenn, once we're done here, just remind me, because I do have a question. So I want to revisit something that we had touched on briefly yesterday, if you don't mind.
Sure. I don't think I don't have much to add here. We did say that the takers on Carbon, they're the aggregators. There are people running the fast lane. There's people that are swapping directly on Carbon through this interface. There's people that swap on Carbon via our SDK, which is a TypeScript SDK. You can get that from GitHub. And there's also people that could potentially take orders on Carbon via something called Hummingbird or Hummingbot, I should say. Sorry.
Hummingbot.
Yeah, Hummingbot, not Hummingbird. Hummingbird is the animal. Hummingbot. Hummingbot is essentially it's a framework for like algorithmic traders that are trying to do algorithmic trading on chain. So it's Python based, right? They have integrated a bunch of different DEXs, and you also have the ability to utilize Hummingbot to take orders from Carbon, right? So there's an adapter on Hummingbot that essentially knows about Carbon, and it knows about those orders. So you can take from Carbon. I think eventually the goal is to also make from there, but I cannot provide any timelines for that. It's something that I think it's like an ultimate goal, but obviously there's other priorities.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot that, I know I would love to have seen just from feedback and stuff, right? I think there's just a lot of room to grow with Carbon DeFi, which is exciting. Can you go to the Explore tab?
Yes, let me go to the Explore tab.
Okay. So the question that we received was, do we have copy trade feature? Where like experts can trade and normies get to just copy trade the experts. So I know we had touched on this a little bit yesterday. Let's revisit it and look at the duplicated strategy. So the answer is no, there is no way to copy trade on Carbon DeFi. You can, however, duplicate a strategy. And the difference is when you're copy trading, essentially, you are mimicking, right, or copying every trade that this person or this wallet makes. Because of the editing feature, well, Glenn, maybe you want to. Do you want to go into this a little bit more than I might be able to?
Yeah, I think you covered the major point there that when you duplicate a strategy, you're duplicating that strategy at that point in time with the price points that they're buying, right? So this person is buying ETH at 2,000, selling at 12,000. If you were to duplicate the strategy, you would duplicate it with those price points. Now, if this person updates their strategy they might buy at like 3,000, sell at 5,000. Your strategy, which you duplicated, will not carry those changes over, right? It will not, right? It will only duplicate the strategy and use the values at that point of creation, right? So this is why it's not copy trading, right? Because any updates that they make to their strategy will not carry on for you, right?
Right. And it's kind of almost a security feature, something I would love to see. If anybody is listening or watching, either one, and knows, like, I would like to see vaults or vault managers, something like that, where one of these experts can create this sort of vault and anybody can provide their liquidity to it, like a automated liquidity management or something of that sort. You know, I would personally like to see that on here.
Yeah.
I think people would use it.
For sure. I think just to touch on that the security feature, the issue becomes, for example, if you duplicate someone else's strategy, right? And let's say they updated that strategy in the future. And let's say we had a system such that those changes made it over to you. It could potentially happen such that let's say they had something that was selling at, like, in this case, they were selling at 12,000. They're selling their ETH at 12,000. Maybe they withdraw all their ETH from this strategy, right? And then they change the price that they were selling that ETH, right? Maybe they would sell that ETH at like $1, right? And then they happen to be the one that takes your ETH at $1, right? Because of this copy trading feature, right? This is why it's sort of a, like you said, it's sort of like a security thing where we want to allow you to easily duplicate someone else's strategy, but we also want to make sure that you're aware, right, that you're taking the values at that point in time. And obviously, if that strategy changes in the future, that owner changes their strategy, it's not going to change your buy and sell price points, right? It is what you have decided, and it will always be what you have decided, right? It's never going to change on you.
I forgot that I was muted. Sorry. I had another question come in. I'm actually going to post it here. Crypto Hunter, thank you for submitting your questions, by the way. His question is, can trades go negative and you lose funds, like get your funds liquidated?
So liquidation typically happens as part of a lending and borrowing protocol, right? We are strictly spot trading. So we don't do any lending and borrowing. There is no liquidations. I guess you could have negative ROIs, like we show them in our DApp. Like some of these have negative ROIs. That's certainly something.
Not every strategy is going to be a winning strategy, right? But I think this is also why the simulator and like what these tools actually are, you know, is to, like, we all talk about transparency, right? But then none of us know what's actually happening with our liquidity or with our funds or with our trades.
Right. So
so this is where those tools come in. So you can actually see what it is. Forget the fees that you're earning. How is my strategy actually performing? What is going on with my liquidity? Is this actually successful as of right now? And how can I improve this? You know?
Right. So the ROI for us, remember, it's always against huddle. So if, for example, a negative ROI could happen if you had, for example, I want to buy ETH at $2,000, sell at 3,000, right? So maybe you did get to buy ETH at 2,000, you did sold at 3,000, right? And obviously, current price of ETH, I think it's close to 4K, right? So you would have been better off just holding that ETH that you bought at 2,000 as opposed to selling it at 3,000, right? So this is how you can get like a quote unquote negative ROI, right? In the sense that.
But it also, this is one of the things that I always say too. And Glenn, tell me if this makes sense to you, if I'm explaining this properly, right? I always say one of the most amazing things about Carbon DeFi is you don't have to time the top and you don't have to time the bottom. Like it's pretty much impossible, right? So if I say I'm going to sell my ETH between, I don't know, 3,700 and 3,800 and it goes up to 3,805, my ROI is going to show negative. Now it's not necessarily negative because I obviously bought below 37 or 35 or 37 or 38, right? But as
Right.
opposed to that hodl position, you know, yes, because it's at 3,805. So for me, it's like I want to, like, are we entering a bull run? We don't really know, right? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, you go into this, like we had said earlier, having a strategy. You kind of have a general idea of where you want to sell and where you're going to walk away and be like, you know what? I'm happy with this. I want to sell this token when it reaches this. I know I'm going to be able to turn around and get, I just looked out my window, get new windows or get this, whatever it happens to be. You're happy. It's your plan. You stuck with it. You're walking away, right? I think this is the beauty of this. If it goes a little bit past that or a little bit below that, it will show you a negative ROI. But in my opinion, like it's almost kind of like I have mixed feelings, towards that sort of thing. Like it doesn't mean you're at a loss, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're at a loss. It always depends on, which
what your intentions are.
Right.
What do you want to achieve from this?
Right. And obviously like the tokens that you're quoting, right, as well, right? Because sometimes you might be trading two tokens against each other that are non like stable coins. So you might be up, like if you're trading Pepe against Floki, right? You might be up like 100% in either Pepe or Floki. But if you look at the dollar price against USDC, you might be down, right? But you might not care because you might be bullish and you think the market, the US dollar value might eventually recover, right? So there's
Right.
multiple ways to look at this, right?
Yeah.
And it all depends, I guess, on your view, right? If you bought something at 2,000 and you sold at 3,000, well, you made $1,000. But the price of that item that you sold at 3 is now $4,000. Well, are you going to be angry that you made $1,000 instead of the 2,000? It's just like how you look at it, essentially. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you think of that you want to go over? For anybody who's watching us, I encourage you to ask us any questions that you have. You can post them to my Twitter account, to the actual live stream that's happening there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can post it there. But any questions, any comments, if you have them, not that now is necessarily the only time, but now is a good time to ask them. Glenn, is there anything in the meantime that you wanted to touch on? Anything else or anything else you wanted to maybe revisit or put emphasis on from yesterday?
No, I think we're coming up on the hour. I think it's actually good.
Oh my gosh, we are again.
We covered a lot. I wasn't expecting to take this long. I thought it's going to be 30 minutes, but I think we covered the majority of things.
Yeah.
Or pretty much everything that I could think of between yesterday and today.
Yeah, same. Okay. Well, if anyone has any other questions, Crypto Hunter, thank you so much for submitting yours. I'm going to get with you offline because I would like to send you a swag pack for all of your support and for submitting your questions and things. I would love to see some memes and stuff coming our way also. So if I can encourage everybody to kind of, send me some of your memes, I'd love to see those. But Glenn, thank you for joining me. Thank you to all of the viewers for joining us also. Again, any questions, please don't hesitate. I'm super, super excited for Say V2. Just to see this all go live and to really, really be able to engage with the community. I'm really looking forward to that as well. I think we're off to a good start, but hopefully, Monday, Tuesday next week, we can kind of like full force. I don't know. We'll see.
For sure. I think we're all looking forward to Say V2 going live and, having all of these apps deployed on chain so that we can start utilizing this cool technology that's being released.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Glenn, thank you again. Thank you everybody again for joining us. And as always, my DMs are open. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Glenn.
Guys. Have a good one.
See ya.